Hey there, I'm Anthony from DESelect, and in today's interview, I will be talking with Chris Zullo, Practice Director at MultiCloud. We talk about catchy headlines for blogs and some of the amazing Salesforce projects he did, such as a major multi-cloud transformation in healthcare. You will notice that segmentation is never far away in this talk either. Now, regular viewers already know this, but if you have any questions for Chris, just put them in the comments and we'll take it from there. Meanwhile, relax, sit back, and enjoy. Hi, Chris. Welcome to this series.
Hey, Anthony. How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm so glad to have you on the show. The weather looks a bit better over there than it is here.
Yeah, it's certainly sunny, but it's a little brisk this morning.
Well, anything probably beats Northern Europe right now, I'm sure. So
that's a fair point. Temperature-wise, anyways.
Right. So could you please introduce yourself to our viewers?
Sure. I'm Chris Zullo. I am the Marketing Practice Director at MultiCloud, and I am a Salesforce MVP as well as a Marketing Champion.
Fantastic. That's a great amount of titles that I definitely would love to dive into. But hey, I noticed something on LinkedIn. Your title says you're also a puzzle solver. So what does that mean?
It's what it means is I like to see how things fit together, and not every piece that looks like a fit actually is. So the way I look at it is figure out what are the pieces on the board, figure out how they should fit together, and then figure out the best way to put those together so I can have a complete view of the picture that I'm putting together.
It sounds like architecture.
It is, there's a lot of thought that goes into it. I mean, you don't typically build a house without putting, pen to paper and creating a blueprint and design and planning. So yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
Well, I've seen people try for sure without all that.
Sometimes it can be fun, but usually more often than not, it doesn't end well.
Gotcha. Do you actually play puzzles or games aside the work puzzles then?
I do. I don't do as many jigsaw puzzles on the tables like I used to. I did actually do that quite a bit in my younger days, but I do play a lot of board games with my family. We play multiple times a week, and the whole family, we sit down at the kitchen table, and somebody picks something out of our stack, and we just kind of have a good time.
Oh, fantastic! Well, multiple times a week, even that's great. I have a hard time getting together with my friends even once a month. So you'll have to teach me more about this multiple times a week board game thing later. Could you tell a bit more about your marketing cloud journey, though?
Sure. Sort of like the accidental admin story you may have heard. I mean, I've always been marketing focused, or certainly passionate towards the marketing aspect of the business world, and I've worked with a number of products over the years, various tools, and so when I got into the Salesforce ecosystem, Marketing Cloud wasn't a thing yet. ExactTarget was a separate tool, and I was actually working with one of their competitors that happens to be a neighbor of theirs up the road, just north of Indianapolis, and my focus was marketing automation, and I got into Salesforce through integration. So I was integrating the tool I was working with and plugging it into Salesforce and mapping the fields back and forth, and then as Salesforce started to acquire various components of what is the Marketing Cloud today, I leaned in heavily and jumped in with both feet, starting with Radian 6 and Buddy Media, which is now Social Studio, among other acquisitions that are wrapped into that product.
Although today I heard some rumor, but I should verify this first, maybe before saying it on camera, but that some parts of the Social Studio are going to be decommissioned, actually.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they will do with that. I mean, I've enjoyed various aspects of it, and it's certainly one of my favorite tools and features under the Marketing Cloud umbrella. And so hopefully it's nothing that I enjoy working with. But yeah, I mean, it's always good to prune anything that's maybe not as relevant or as useful as it used to be. So I'm not sure what specifically they would pull out, but it'd be interesting to see where that goes.
Yeah, we'll check up on that and put the link in the description of the video. Either way, for anyone watching, we tend to put resources in the description of either YouTube or our blog, wherever you're watching from. Going back to you, Chris. In your introduction, you mentioned you're an MVP. Since recently, you're a Salesforce Marketing Champion. Congrats on both of those. Can you explain what these titles mean to you personally?
Sure. So I'll start with the MVP title, since I've had that one a little bit longer than the Marketing Champion. The official definition is most valuable professional, and what it means to me is just an acknowledgement and recognition of contributions to the community at large. It's going above and beyond your day job. We all want to be the best that we can be within our professional capabilities, if you will, but stepping out, and whether it's writing blog posts or answering questions or otherwise helping others on their path, that's to me what is an MVP. And honestly, it is a humbling title to have. I think that's the best way I could describe it. It's a very humbling title to have, because most of the time I don't feel that I've earned that title, because it does sound much bigger. And maybe that's just me over analyzing the title, but it's sometimes overwhelming.
But you get front seats at Salesforce Connections.
That is a huge perk that I absolutely enjoy. So yeah, definitely worth the price of admission, which fortunately is free, to be in the program. The other one, Marketing Champion, is a product specific accreditation, and I won't say accreditation, but again, another recognition for really leaning into a specific area of the product stack that Salesforce has. And as I mentioned, I'm very deep in and passionate about the marketing technologies that Salesforce has.
Awesome. Thanks for elaborating on that. Now, recently you wrote an article with a rather provocative title.
Yes.
I think it was called "End the Marketing Cloud." Care to share the story behind that one?
Yeah, absolutely. That was probably the most enjoyable piece I've ever written. Certainly enjoyed throwing that title down, which was inspired by Star Wars, and in the Last Jedi, when Luke Skywalker said it's time for the Jedi to end, I was like, yep, definitely stealing that, and
awesome. Yeah, I didn't catch the reference, but it was certainly good clickbait for me personally, because I clicked it when I saw it.
Yeah, well, that was the thing. Like, it's definitely the most clickbaity title I've ever thrown down. But the meat behind that is something that's been on my mind for years, and I've spoken about it with various folks inside and outside Salesforce. But it's really that the Marketing Cloud as a name is not wholly accurate of everything that it can do. Certainly there's a number of scenarios where people that use the Marketing Cloud or parts of the Marketing Cloud aren't necessarily marketing, or they don't view themselves as marketers. For instance, healthcare, higher education are two that really jump out at me. And it was funny. It was, I think, at a Dreamforce years ago that a good friend of mine, was in a session I had led, and was taught. It was about Marketing Cloud, and just having a informal chat after the session with a bunch of folks in the audience. And I had mentioned, you're doing one of two things with any business, or you're either trying to increase revenue or lower costs. And that was a little too narrowly focused for somebody that's in higher education, and they gently corrected me on that, and it made me think, like, you know what, you're absolutely right. While both of those are somewhat applicable to virtually any organization that is dependent on funds coming in, or going out to support whatever services they're doing, it was just too narrow. And so at that point, I realized it's really much more about the engagement aspect. At the end of the day, there are people on either end of that conversation, whether you realize it's a conversation or not. It is and should be a two-way street. Now, you can't necessarily talk to everybody directly, but if you are communicating with somebody who wants to hear from you, you need to treat that with respect. And so, it is really about, it's not just what's in it for me, it's what's in it for you. And so, am I providing you value, or is it too one-sided? And so, long story short, the Marketing Cloud, I think, is it needs to be remarketed. It needs to be rebranded, renamed as the Engagement Cloud, because that's really much more inclusive, because it covers so many channels. It's not just email, it's not just social, it's not just mobile. There's advertising as well. There's various components to it that go into engagement between one or more humans.
It's a very interesting point. And actually, now that you explain it like this, it makes me realize that I had similar experiences, though I didn't have the insight as you had. And definitely didn't write a piece with such a good catchy headline. But I recall reaching out to a local government office because I knew they had Marketing Cloud, and thought maybe we can do something for them. So they essentially help with training people who are unemployed or just migrated. And I reached out to one of their IT architects and saying like, hey, we can probably help your marketers, with segmentation, etc. And he said, we don't have marketers. It's like, oh wow, completely missed the messaging there. So it's interesting to hear you say that. Not everyone uses even that phrase.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, and that's interesting, because there's a number of government organizations or agencies across the globe, including here, that use the Marketing Cloud. So that that's another group, again, that wouldn't necessarily see themselves as marketers, but they have the ability or would benefit from using something like Marketing Cloud.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, we've covered blogging, but Salesforce has a very great ecosystem, huge community. People sometimes call it the Ohana, term coined by, the Hawaiians, but mostly Benioff in the context of Salesforce, of course. Are there other ways that you're very active in this Ohana that you contribute?
Certainly enjoy connecting with folks like yourself. So, enjoy, coming on and having a chat about, marketing, technology, or engagement, what have you. Also, really enjoy getting out when we're allowed to, go to various events and connect with people and help them learn more about, what art of the possible, or how they might, if they're doing something a certain way, if there may be other ways to enhance what they're doing. So I really enjoy going to world tours, Connections, Dreamforce, and the various community events. I was very personally hurt earlier this year when the pandemic really sort of reached a tipping point and travel started getting restricted. Was literally days away from going to London to participate in London Calling, and obviously it shut down a number of other groups and sessions that I was going to be a part of, like Southeast Dreamin', and so everything shifted virtual. So while I've shifted to do the virtual and it's still fun, it's not quite the same as being there in person and connecting with people directly.
I fully agree. I've always enjoyed my time at Dreamforce and Salesforce Connections, especially, so much. You do make good connections. You have interesting chats. And you know what? Once we're allowed to go out again, I'll happily buy you a beer at the first, or a drink of your choice at the first event we get to meet.
No, that'd be great.
Great. Now, you already hinted at this earlier. You've worked with several marketing automation solutions. Obviously, being a practice leader, you've had a fair share of project experience, I guess. How does Marketing Cloud differ from other solutions?
So I would say it's one of the few, true, in my opinion, platforms. There's a number of, point solutions, tools, and applications, but very few have the depth and breadth of the Marketing Cloud. It's maybe not quite as large as the core clouds on the CRM side of Salesforce, like sales, service, community, what have you, but it is a platform. It's supporting multiple channels. It can do a number of heavy lifting, from automation, segmentation, journeys, what have you. And so it is, to me, a platform and needs to be viewed as such. It's not just a simple add-on. It's not just it shouldn't be an afterthought of, oh, we need to send some emails. Let's go do this. It is something that can support most organizations. Just a matter of like, how big of a piece of the Marketing Cloud do you need to accomplish your goals?
Makes sense. And if you look back at some of the projects you've done, was there one project that really stood out that was really remarkable to you?
Honestly, I mean, there's been a number of those types of projects, but I think the one that stands out the most was a multi-cloud transformation project that I worked with a amazing healthcare provider here in the States that really had outgrown its in-house solution that they had actually built to purpose, and it got the job done. But after 10 years and a number of customizations, it wasn't as efficient as it was at the beginning, right? So just helping them with their transformation from the CRM all the way through the marketing, enabling them to cut down their segmentation from days to minutes. Like, imagine sitting down and writing a query, even a simple query that may still take hours to compile because there's just so much technical debt and just so many silos to kind of cut through to get everything in order to create this one view, and being able to just bring that under one roof within the Marketing Cloud, and being able to just say, yep, here's my segment, and boom, a couple of minutes later it's there, or even faster.
It sounds like a very recognizable story. It seems we have similar project experiences then.
Yeah, that's definitely one that stands out.
And that was multi-cloud, you say?
That was multi-cloud, sales, service, multiple external integrations. There was a number of teams. It was a huge project, over a year-long engagement. The client team was amazing. My project team was amazing. It was.
Can we know which client it was, in case you want to give a little shout out?
Sure. Care First Healthcare. Amazing organization up in Maryland.
Fantastic. It sounds like an awesome project to have been a part of. With this customer too, you already mentioned segmentation. Now, obviously, us being an ISV provider, independent software vendor, I'd be interested to learn if there are certain custom features that you often hear coming up from customers that are not out of the box in Marketing Cloud, despite it being such a wide platform.
Well, two that come out, and I think one will be close to home for you. I think the first one is the Preference Center. Just being able to do more than the out-of-the-box Preference Center, which it gets the job done, but it is very static, and there's only so much customization you can do. So a highly regulated organization, or one who really has some strong branding needs, will need to step beyond the out-of-the-box Preference Center within Marketing Cloud. So that's something that comes up a fair amount. And the other one is segmentation. When Marketing Cloud, the way I describe it to people is it's not rocket science, but it is a little different than maybe what you're used to in terms of organizing your data. And it can be as simple as you need it to be, because there are a number of ways to simply segment your data. However, in more complex and advanced segmentation needs, when those situations arise, you typically have to go into SQL and put some queries in place. And most marketers don't want to play with SQL. And so that sometimes, when that comes up, and if they don't have somebody on staff that is comfortable with that, that can be a challenging transition for them, at least at first. So those are the two things that come up a lot.
Yeah, it can be a little bit of a surprise. We have a slide even in our presentation deck. We call it the marketing automation hype cycle, where people get very pumped up at the start. They're going to automate everything. They're going to have customer 360, multi-channel, all the buzzwords get flung around. And then first campaign happens, like, oh, wait, we need SQL. And then it gets a little bit roller coastery from that point on. If only there was a solution that could solve that, huh?
If only.
If only. Well, on that note, one of the things that obviously I like about Salesforce is that it's an open ecosystem.
Mhm.
As the Salesforce App Exchange, largest B2B app store in the world. So curious if you've been working with any apps recently that you would recommend to our audience.
I mean, first of all, I've recently discovered yours, so I'm excited to get more experience with your solutions. But ones that I have worked with recently, big fan of Sales Wings. That's an amazing solution. Again, filling a huge need within Marketing Cloud. So I know you recently chatted with Philip, and
Oh yeah,
and so a big fan of them. Always a huge fan of Litmus as well. I don't think enough people appreciate the value that Litmus can bring to their marketing operations and execution. So those are probably the two biggest from a marketing perspective.
great. We'll make sure to add them as well. And absolutely, Philip's a great guy. It has made a great solution, great company. So we know them well, yeah, for sure. As for ours, we'd be happy, of course, to give your team a demo and to do an awareness session or something like that. But we can take that offline.
Sure.
So, aside this, are there other pain points for you in the Marketing Cloud currently?
I think if there was one, I think it would be, and this is no knock on what Customer 360 is bringing to the table, but I think just managing a single view of the customer profile sometimes can be challenging. I think what I would love would be to have one unique key that we don't necessarily have to worry about. The subscriber key is the the golden key, if you will, to managing and maintaining a single view of any one person. And personally, I would love it if, even if it was just behind the scenes and seamless to us, I wish there was a connection to a placeholder, if you will, to the Salesforce CRM, where there was one unique key that, if and when that was ever integrated to the Salesforce CRM, which more often than not it is, there'd be less juggling. For example, if you use leads and contacts, you need to be more thoughtful around your contact model, your data model, if you will. And so, there are some challenges when you have a more complex contact model, and I would love that to be simplified without necessarily requiring an add-on service, or requiring a customer to have to go engage with a consultant on a lengthy process to untangle some of the things if it wasn't accounted for when they first got started. I mean, a lot of this is, it's not an intentional path they go down, but when it comes up, it can be quite painful.
Absolutely, it's so easy to make some rookie mistakes, even on Marketing Cloud projects that come to haunt you later.
Hmm.
In fact, we're working on an ebook right now about such things, and the data model, because it's something that we hear clients talk about a lot, and partners actually. So we're going to write an ebook about it. In fact, by the time that this interview is live, it might be already published as well. So we'll put the link in the description here too.
Awesome. Can't wait to read it.
Awesome. Yeah, and I would really appreciate the feedback from someone like yourself, obviously. So what do you think is the future of Marketing Cloud?
Well, that's a loaded question, but in a perfect world, I would love to see a best in breed, uh, child, if you will, where what was Exact Target in the various components and Pardot were one unified and amazing, solution where, depending on what your needs were, those various features that make each unique and amazing would be you just, again, sort of a united front. I think too often people refer to Pardot or Marketing Cloud as if they're separate entities. The Pardot is a part of the Marketing Cloud. Email Studio is actually the name of the tool that used to be known as Exact Target. And there's a lot of, obviously, similarities when you are sending emails. Now, they have some very specific features and capabilities that make them very different. But the email is email. And so I would love for that to be a more cohesive marriage, or just like, just sort of merge them into one. Realistically, I don't know that will ever happen, but in a perfect world, if I could just wave a magic wand, that would be the result would be, when we're talking about the Marketing Cloud, it'd be the Salesforce Engagement Cloud, and the best of Pardot, the best of Exact Target would be combined into one amazing solution.
Right. I mean, we're dealing with a lot of legacy from past acquisitions, right?
Yep.
Although I've been a bit out of touch with Pardot, to be very frank. I was originally introduced to marketing automation via Pardot, but I've been specializing only on Marketing Cloud in recent years. So, but the last things I saw is that there were a lot of trends going towards Pardot being more a part of Sales Cloud, being more on the Forcecom platform, much more components being available in Lightning. Perhaps you know more about that.
Yeah, they definitely have. I think Pardot had the benefit of, having being a few years younger than Exact Target, because Exact Target, has been around from the beginning. It's about the same age as Salesforce. I'm not sure which one actually came first. I think within a year or two, those two solutions or products were born. But when Pardot came in, they came in with the idea that they were going to leverage Salesforce as much as possible, at least the Salesforce solution. And so, just by default, it more naturally fit into the Sales Cloud design and architecture, and has always been more at home, if you will. And there have been phases over the past few years where it was more sort of positioned as being a part of the Sales Cloud. But at the end of the day, it's still marketing automation. It's still has much more in common with Exact Target and other tools like it than it does with with the CRM, even though it is a great complement and has great partnership with it. So yeah, I love having it in Salesforce and having it look like it's always been there, like it belongs. But I would never, in my own words, say that is a Sales Cloud solution or a Service Cloud solution. It is distinctly different and has very different capabilities and objectives than the other features that it might be, sharing the same storage with.
Although I do wonder if ever it will become a real. I mean, though the capabilities are different, it will remain different products, of course. I do wonder if it would ever become a real part of the Forcecom platform, so that integration is not an issue anymore. First of all, and not just for Pardot, but also for Marketing Cloud. And I've become very careful in speculating about this. But I remember years ago there was a partner event in Indianapolis, and they gave very strong hints there. Let's say that Marketing Cloud would become more a part of Forcecom, and it seems to me that either that they've changed their mind, but then again, sometimes I still hear hints about this. Maybe it's just very, very hard even for them. Want to take a step at this one?
Sure. I don't see that ever happening personally. Uh, I think because it was, it started on a different tech stack, to begin with. That would be a monumental shift on the scale of the like of the Titanic dodging icebergs like like it was nothing. Because that is just such a massive change and shift. Like that would be a multiple year intensive effort, and by the time that happened, would it even be sort of, I guess, up to date on where, like, when the transition started. Like I feel like the goalpost, or the goal line, the finish line would constantly be moving further and further down the road. So I don't know that they would put that time and financial investment in there, as opposed to really making the connections, the integrations, if you will, so seamless that you don't even think about it, that you enable it, and the baseline connections and the hooks between the two are just so rock solid that you don't even notice or worry about that. I think that's more likely. In a perfect world, again, if I could wave the wand, they would all be under the same roof, all in the same tech, and everything would be very happy, and never have issues with mapping and integration. It would all be sort of a shared resource. Love to see it. I don't know that we will ever see that.
Okay, interesting. Very interesting. Let's shift gears for a second. There's always the elephant in the room these days. We're living in unprecedented times. So, how has the pandemic changed your working routine? Are there any tips you care to share?
So, I mean, I would like to take credit for being a visionary in that regard, but fortunately for me, I've been a remote employee for over a decade.
Oh wow. Okay.
So, so, so not a whole lot changed for me, other than the travel restrictions. Like when I went into an office, I was typically traveling via plane to a client destination. That obviously is not desired on either side at this point. So that didn't really, overall, like my daily routine doesn't change much. It just means I didn't have to get on the road.
Gotcha. So, is it different then now that you miss the in-person contact with your customers?
I mean, I certainly appreciate and value that face-to-face, connection. There's nothing that can replace that. So it's definitely something I think needs to continue where it's appropriate. But honestly, from a daily routine, like I'm not wasting time in traffic commuting to an office. It gives me greater flexibility in terms of how I spend my time. That's time I just can't get back, right? So, very, very fortunate that my commute is seconds as opposed to minutes or hours in some cases for some folks. But I think the biggest thing, for those who maybe are more recent or newer to the remote life, they're all veterans by now, right? Because they've got almost a year under their belt. But I think it's just really important if you can carve out a dedicated space. I think the biggest challenge I've heard from folks is, if they're working on their kitchen table or working from their living room, it can be challenging to really focus when you're sitting on like a very comfy chair, and your laptop's on your knees, as opposed to being on a desk where you can sort of maybe have multiple monitors, or just
Right.
things are organized, as opposed to the disruptive nature of changing brooms every day based on your living situation, family, roommates, whatever. Like might not be able to have that dedicated space, but as much as possible, kind of carving out your area and just really normalizing it as much as you can.
Right. Yeah, the kitchen would be my doom. I'd be standing in the fridge nonstop.
Yes, no, that's why I'm on the opposite end of the house of the fridge.
Great. Right. So thanks for sharing those tips. Do you have any closing thoughts that you would like you would like to share with our audience?
No, just obviously stay safe. Um, do what you need to do, but just keep in mind we're all doing the best we can. Personally, just be compassionate towards one another. I think there's a lack of that in the world today. Professionally, get after it. Whatever it is that you're going after, even if it's not Marketing Cloud, if it's some other tool or product, there's so many options for you professionally as well as from a solution perspective. I love what you're doing and all the options on the App Exchange. And so there's just if you can think of it, there's a good chance there's a option available for you, and if not, make it yourself and get after your own dreams. So that's what I would share.
I love that, and I also I really think the message about compassion is really on point. So great stuff, Chris. It was really a pleasure to have you on today's interview. Thank you so much for your time.
Appreciate it.